we welcome Mr. Dan Perry. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Do you think that this person, Reza Pahlavi, does he have any effectiveness, even though he has been, issuing comments and issuing statements such as the one we heard now?
The Iranian opposition, I think, is supported by a significant majority of the people in Iran, probably an overwhelming majority of the people in Iran, but it lacks a unifying figure, which throughout history has been a weakness of opposition movements when facing despotic governments that have total control over people's ability to congregate, to get out messages, to organize, and so forth. In that sense, Pahlavi, because of his name recognition, because of the fact that he has the staying power, where he's been a figure known to the Iranian people for almost a half century, I think does have value. It's very important that Pahlavi projects that he does not have monarchic inclinations, but he clearly would like to leverage the fact that he's known and has support to become a transition figure on the way to an Iranian democracy. I interviewed him a year and a half ago, and my impression was that indeed that is his genuine aspiration, and as such, he can be useful. Now, it's clear that this dynamic where he might become a unifying figure, maybe a symbolic figure, perhaps a transition figure, maybe ultimately an elected leader in Iran, is something the exile community, the Iranian diaspora in the UK, in the US, and elsewhere likes. I mean, he has a lot of support in those circles, not total, but significant. Within Iran itself, it's difficult to say because it's a completely unfree country and there aren't real opinion polls that are credible, and we don't know. But I think it's probable that under the right circumstances, Pahlavi can indeed gather enough momentum to become a figure of note and sort of a symbol of the array of different kinds of people that would like this regime to go. Whether they'll listen to him or not is an open question. He's very, very smart in telling the people right now to stay at home, but telling the military to start thinking about betraying the theocrats. The only hope of a regime change in Iran is if the men with guns eventually turn on their current criminal government. To rely on opposition street protest only is almost an invitation to have them continue to be massacred in the streets. What the regime, or what remains of it, or the current iteration of it, obviously has no hesitation in simply shooting at the crowds.
So do you think that Iranian people are ready to forgive him, or not him, but particularly his family, his dad, who was oppressing the Iranian people, and which also ended up in him or his family being in exile?
I think the answer is yes, because when the Shah was overthrown, he was in his late teens. He's not responsible for any of that. And he, as I said before, does not seem inclined to become a monarchic figure that has absolute power, or even has power vested in him by virtue of his lineage. He presents himself as simply someone who's known and who has stood for opposition to the regime, and who is able to articulate the various ways in which Iran should change while still being true to its culture.
Are you staying safe in Tel Aviv?
I'm in Tel Aviv. I don't know how safe I am, or any of us ever can be. But the sense in Tel Aviv and in Israel in general is that the air defenses, the anti-missile shield, essentially, of Iron Dome and of the Arrow 3 system and other systems remains reasonably effective, quite effective. You have had 12 people killed in Israel in the past 10 days. That's terrible, but yes, it is not many thousands. Most of the missiles are being intercepted, and it can be unsettling when you hear enormous explosions above your head. But with a few tragic exceptions, the missile landings have not caused enormous harm. And so, yeah, I think within reason, one does feel safe because of the anti-missile defense.
Although, thank you for letting us know the situation, Mr. Perry. And although, most of the missiles you say are intercepted, of course, some of the missiles did penetrate and led to, like you mentioned, 12 people being dead. Do you think that, this missile capability of Iran is very advanced, and how do you analyze current capacity of Iran? And also, another question, do you think there is a disalignment between Pezeshkian, the Iranian president, and the new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei?
Iran is extremely opaque, and it's difficult to know what goes on behind closed doors and within the inner sanctum. And also, in general, when a nation is at war, especially when a police state is at war, one mustn't trust too much anything said in public. That said, Pezeshkian is a doctor, he's not a cleric. He was always seen as a moderate and a reformist. He has the cast about him of a pragmatic and moderate person within reason, within the bounds of what is possible in the Islamic Republic. Meanwhile, Mojtaba Khamenei has a reputation of a hardliner, even perhaps worse than his father. We don't know for sure. He has not made many public statements. He doesn't make a lot of speeches. He's not been visible for the past week and a half, and even long before. So it's a bit of a mystery, but it's reasonable to assess that given the degree of ruination visited upon Iran and the degree to which they've been exposed as something of a paper tiger, and just the fact that the regime was indisputably decapitated, and that Israel and the U.S. control their skies, all of these things, I have to think, are leading to a discussion within the Islamic Republic about whether perhaps to agree to renewed talks and pausing the war. In those talks, they'd have to basically agree to American terms, which would mean an end to the missile program, the nuclear program, and the militias. The question is whether they're prepared to contemplate such a thing. It doesn't matter that the Iranian people obviously would like them to. Does it matter that the Iranian people would obviously like them to go further and to initiate reforms in the system? Even if the Islamic regime can remain in name, maybe they can move to more of a republic where the parliament and the president have real powers. All these questions are open, and I would suspect very much that Pezeshkian, the president, would like all this to happen, much as his predecessor, Rafsanjani, in the early 90s, aimed for something along the same lines when he had what was obviously a developing a misalignment with Khamenei, and Khamenei came out on top. And the result was an Iran completely run by the supreme leader and totally dedicated to the exporting of jihad around the region. We may be seeing a renewal of that type of internal discourse within the regime. And I think that will also inform the question of whether the military, the paramilitary, other elements of the security apparatus might make their voices heard, might pull things in a different direction, and might even perhaps, not impossible to contemplate, overthrow the government, as we heard Reza Pahlavi suggest. He hopes might be the case. All of this is possible. As for the situation with the rockets, Iran is obviously calculating that they can continue to fire rockets at Israel and at the Persian Gulf countries and block the Strait of Hormuz for enough time to unsettle the world and to outlast the patience of Trump, of American public opinion, of global public opinion, of the countries around Iran. If enough pressure is created to just call it a day, declare victory, and return to the status quo antebellum, that's what Iran is hoping for. And it's impossible to predict whether that will be successful because, of course, we're dealing to an unsettling degree with the decision of one man, and that is Trump.
Yes, indeed. With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Dan Perry for joining us today from Tel Aviv and sharing that insight. Thank you very much.